Welcome to Overcome Yourself, the podcast, where we rewrite stories, shift mindsets, and make dreams come true. I'm your host, Nicole. Let's get into today's episode. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the next episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. As you know, my name is Nicole, and I'm so excited to be here today with David Osk. Did I say that right? It's spelled like ask, but it's pronounced Osk.
You
So did I
nailed it. Yes.
All right. Yay, awesome. So now the audience knows too. Perfect. So welcome, David. I'm so excited. You have just such an amazing energy about you. So I'm excited to have you here. I cut myself off.
Oh,
But please introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about who you are and who you help.
yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I remember when I saw your just the title of your podcast. It grabbed me, right? And so way to go on the marketing there. But I think, and then of course I went and listened, just to various clips and your socials and everything and so on. And yeah, I like your vibe. So glad to be here today. So
Thanks.
yeah, I'm David Osk. I actually live just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I moved here back right after high school and for music, like a million other people. So I'm a vocalist, author. I'm writing another book for dads right now. I run a small business. I kind of along with my brother-in-law invented the world's first thermostat guard that has a combination lock, and we sell that in Home Depot and Lowe's, and I'm hoping some other stores here soon. In fact, I just licensed a new unit to the Pro channel. So we've got the Lockbox Pro that's in Granger and HD Supply and Johnstone and some other locations like that. And I do a mastermind group. I'm part of the Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. Yeah, I do some speaking, all kinds of different stuff. And so yeah, just glad to be here with you today.
That is incredible. So you are an inventor. You've got a lot going on. Like I was reading your
Yeah.
stuff and I'm like, man, this dude is amazing. But you've invented more than just one thing, right? Like I saw that you had invented several, if not thousands of things.
Well, so interestingly enough, the original thermostat guard that I came up with is technically my brother-in-law. It was his idea. We kind of developed it together. That's the original is in the Home Depot, and that's and then we created kind of a new variation for Lowe's, so they have got something just slightly different. So that's two, I guess, and then we have so patented and trademarked, and then the latest one is actually, for the technically we licensed it to Lennox Corporation, but it's and I say we, it's my wife and I now who run this little company here, but that one is actually has a combination lock with a key, so it's just a plastic box that goes over thermostats to keep people from messing around with thermostats. It's mainly for commercial properties, right? You could use them in offices or churches or restaurants or hotels, things like that. Although it's surprising the number of people that will put them in their homes to keep their kids from turning the temperature way down or way up or whatever it might be. So yeah.
That is amazing. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? Like, how did you become an inventor? Like, you've done such amazing things. How did you end up here? Like you were in music, you mentioned in Nashville. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey to where you are now?
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny. Growing up, I grew up in Minnesota, and my mom was a music teacher, and my dad owned his own metal fab shop, and so on. And I was always surrounded by people that were business owners and um, things like that. But it was one of those things where I knew at some point that I wanted to run my own company, but I just really wasn't sure what that is. But then, of course, coupled with that was just this idea that in our family was music was just so front and center, and so it was really interesting how the I guess the yeah, that portion of our lives was, I'll put it this way, it was just so ingrained in our family. Like we didn't know that everybody didn't do music, right? So I at the same time though, I realized, when I kind of got into high school that I had a pretty high ability in that area. And I was a vocalist, ended up moving to Nashville, spent some time at Belmont University as a vocal major, and since then I've cut three records, and I still, in fact, this last year, you'll get a kick out of this. So, the band Journey, that's of course, who doesn't know Journey, right? So I'm the first one in the world to record Open Arms, but I did it in Italian and English, and I'm working on the full Italian version for this year. And so it's on iTunes and Spotify and all that. But yeah, I'm a guy who I think just really likes to be creative, whatever I'm doing, whether it's books or musics or products or things like that. I like people and I like creativity.
That is amazing. I was cheering you on. I had muted myself, but I was clapping for you and cheering you on because that is so awesome. That's amazing. I love that, and I love the idea of, a musical family that is so cool and just having it be just a part of everyday life. So that's beautiful. So, you mentioned something that really caught my attention in, in our communications before this episode. And you mentioned that there is a difference between grit and perseverance. And that really caught my attention. And I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, yeah. So actually I think what I sent was grit and resilience.
Okay,
And
yes, resilience.
yeah,
Sorry.
and obviously there are some words in and around all of that space that kind of overlap, that kind of thing. But so one of the things that I do is I work really closely with a friend of mine. He's a clinical psychologist, Dr. Andy Garrett, lives out in California. But he really introduced me to some things that have been really helpful, and some things, I'll be honest, that I thought were kind of, woo-hoo, kind of, I don't know, stuff out in the ether or
Out there.
whatever. Yeah, that honestly are quite practical, and like words like authenticity and identity and things like that that I thought were, just kind of stuff people kind of, you created on your own, or all, became somebody, or all that kind of thing. And so what's fascinating is I'm actually writing a book for dads called The Guardians of Grit for fathers and sons. I'm kind of just drilling into that demographic. But so the word grit, Angela Duckworth, I think she's a Stanford professor maybe, but she kind of sums up grit, just this idea that I'm going to do something, over a long period of time, because it's just worth fighting for, right? It's like I'm going to climb that hill, I'm going to run that marathon. So, a long period of time literally might be, 3 hours or something to run a marathon, or it might be 18 years to raise kids, right? It's, so what is it that is that grit under your feet, that gives you traction, right? I'm going to climb this hill. I need traction. I need something that's going to allow me to, keep going forward and not keep sliding backwards.
Mhm.
And so I'll put a pin in that for a second. And then the word resilience, I like Dr. Andy said resilience is, this idea that, for instance, as a picture, if you bounce a ball on the ground, really hard, like a basketball, for a split second, it loses its shape. But what happens? Well, it bounces back to a shape that is definable, right? You can measure the circumference and the diameter and so on. So he says that, grit and resilience, if it's true grit, if it's true resiliency, it's actually the traction that's under our feet, our values. It's really that plumb line inside of us that is, that will never fade away. It's that stuff that we anchor to, or how about this? The stuff that we would hope that we would identify, right? The word identity, and the things that we would anchor to that are authentic, to who we are and what we value. And so here's what I think is really fascinating though too. So I'll jump into the deep end of the pool if that's okay. Um,
Yes.
so here's this is it's a funny thing. So like I was speaking in front of a group down in Jamaica about a year ago with Dr. Andy, and I got up in front of the room and I asked everybody, I said, "Hey, does anybody know where we get the word authenticity from?" Well, of course, everybody's kind of staring at the floor and like, "Oh, well, I've never even thought about it." Well, it comes from the word author,
Mhm.
right? Well, we didn't make us, right? I didn't choose my skin color, which is a popular one. I didn't choose my taste buds, my eye color, my hair color, which family I was born into. I didn't choose my own DNA. I didn't choose, kind of this idea that my favorite colors or favorite things, that kind of stuff, that's somehow that I'm just drumming that up. Well, how do we know that, you know, we're kind of hardwired, right? Like we didn't make us. Well, when children are growing up, and they're, whatever, weeks or months old, and, 2, 3, and 4, 5 years old, children are not thinking about identity and authenticity, right? I mean, they're not really sophisticated like we are. They're just doing their deal. They're just being authentic, right? They're operating inside of the natural wiring that God made them in, right? Because they like pizza versus, hot dogs or whatever, or chocolate versus vanilla. It feels like they're choosing it, right? Because they are. But the fact that they have taste buds that are, would prefer something over the other, it was wired into them. And so there's something really, it's almost, I'll be honest, even as I say that, it almost seems kind of confrontational because we want to think that we're all these, autonomous, I'm choosing absolutely everything. Well, we're really not. But here's where it gets really wonderful when we understand, and again, I have a biblical worldview that we are made in the image of the one who made lightning and tigers and hurricanes and koala bears and tornadoes and, just the most glorious, powerful things. We're made in that image. Well, boy, when we start to identify all of those beautiful, powerful, wonderful things that have been literally knit into our DNA, and we start aligning with those things, right? We just kind of give ourselves to those tendencies. The fact that I like to sing or I can sing, I didn't choose that, right? That was a gift given to me. Well, guess what? We
Some
start,
people like to sing, but they're not good at
yeah,
it.
but here's the funny thing. When I start just kind of giving myself to those natural tendencies, what happens? Well, I start to feel genuine. I start to feel authentic. I start to feel normal and natural. And, I mean, like one of the worst things you could possibly say to your kids is, why can't you be like your older brother? You're not good enough the way you are. Like, why can't you be somebody else? As opposed to what? You're awesome. And I love the way, God fashioned you. And I love the way everything from your hair color to your cute little fingernails to, whatever it might be. And you're validating all of that natural, normal, authentic goodness. So, again, to your question, grit and resilience, it's fascinating when we just start to kind of give ourselves to those things that are super, how about this, supernatural to us. We start to feel authentic and genuine and natural and resilient and free and gritty because we've identified, right, the word identity, all of those things that are meaningful to us. And let me tip it on its head real quick. Well, how do you know you aren't gritty or resilient? How do you know you haven't found those things? Well, guess what? You've got a high level of anxiety. You've got a high level of maybe depression, right? You haven't anchored to those things inside of you that are the most beautiful, powerful, courageous, values-driven things. You're probably living your life avoiding certain people, right? You feel inferior to some people. You walk into a room with a big question mark, like, oh my gosh, what are they going to say about me? Or think about my clothes, or think about, my kids, or like there's those big question marks. And the opposite of that, right? Of feeling natural and normal and free and just how you were wired is so powerful. It is truly super in a very, adjective way, natural. You start to just feel yourself. So grit and resilience are, what is it that David Osk or Nicole Tewks, is it Tewksbury or Tuxbury?
Experience.
Tuxbury. I love your last name, by the way. And
Thank you.
it's, what are those things that we value most of all in this life that give us that grit under our feet? And that when we say we're resilient and we bounce back from a fall of sorts, what are we bouncing back to? Or how about this? Who are we bouncing back to? And if I cannot identify, like literally write those things down that David Osk happens to value most of all in this life, well, I might be bouncing off the floor and bouncing right back in the other ditch, right? It might be
Mhm.
just whatever way the wind is blowing today and whatever way my emotions are going or whatever people pleasing I'm trying to do. I know that's obviously there's a lot there, but I think that grit and resilience, and if I had to define what those things are, I think the closest word I could come to would be values.
Mhm. I think that's such a great image. It's almost even like the chart of, because sometimes we feel up, sometimes we feel down, but the grid is like the floor, and then the basketball is bouncing up and down because life happens. Like things are gonna
Yeah,
happen.
it's that foundation. It's the floor. I like your phrase there. It's like like what is the scaffolding? Like if I say that I'm
Mhm.
building my life on something and I'm making decisions, on what basis am I making those decisions? And it's
Yeah.
fascinating. When I went through Dr. Andy's course, we dive into things like, what are the hierarchy of my values or my virtues? What type of an impact do I want to have? That dent in the universe thing. What are my convictions? What do I believe is right and wrong, right? Values, virtues, and convictions are all different. What is it that gives me goosebumps? What is it that lights me on fire? What is it that just breaks my heart? Like when you start to get really clear on the description of who you are and what you value and what type of impact you want to have, well, guess what? You know in advance what you're going to say yes to and no to, and you're not making it up as you go along.
I love that. I think that's so powerful. And to your point of, the stuff we're made of, um, God created the stars, and the stuff that's in the stars is in us too. Like it's
Yeah.
literally the stuff from the stars is in us. It's a part of us. And so yeah, like we are one with this whole universe because like the same little molecules that make those asteroids flying out up there, make all the other planets, all these other things, they're in us. Like literally like it's the composition. Like I'm pointing at my hand, right? Like those are the tiny things that are in us. And it's limitless. It's so powerful. Like you said, um we are creators, right? Because if God is a creator, we're made in his image. That makes us co-creators. And so how are we going to affect our universe knowing that we are creating something? So leaning into creating something beautiful, to making great things happen around us. And the values is kind of hard to understand before you really need those values. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh, when I make this decision, is it going to be out of abundance? Is it going to be out of faith? Or am I making this decision because I'm scared? And then learning the difference between those two things. Am I doing this because it's fun, or am I doing this because I feel obligated to? Am I doing this for adventure, or am I just doing this because that's what my mom said? And so like finding in the journey is where we find those values and knowing, do we stand up for this? Well, it's my value, so I have to, so I have to say something. So I love that. And it is a process. It is something, it's very easy to talk about, but you don't really get it. At least I didn't really get it until I was going through it. And I was like, oh, that's why these values are so important. Because when you're sitting with a client and they're yelling at you and they're calling you names, it's time to have a choice. Like, am I gonna sit here and take this, or do my values not allow me? Do my values like draw a line here? Or if there's so many situations in everyday life where you don't realize sometimes the values, how they play out in even those tiny decisions. And so
I think it's
thinking of
fascinating. I think it's
yes,
fascinating too is the fact of the matter is that values are irrelevant unless we realize that we are valued,
yes,
right? I mean, isn't it, it's
mhm,
amazing when you look at, children who were not valued, right? When they were mm, harmed in some way, right? Abused, they've got trauma, they've got neglect, or they've been abandoned. It's amazing how, this idea that, we cannot give away something that we don't have, right? If I don't have $100, I can't give you $100. If I don't understand that I am valued, as a priceless treasure, I mean, it's then relationships become uh, kind of transactional, or they become
transaction.
I'm trying to manage something here,
Hmm.
as opposed to, I'm David Osk and I'm showing up to have a beautiful impact on those around me. If whether they, like it or not, or whatever that might happen, happens there, right, is kind of irrelevant, because I'm showing up in a way that is absolutely meaningful to who I am and the type of person that I am, not that I want to be, the type of person that I am, and that the type of impact that I want to have. The results, they don't belong to me. But I think it's really fascinating is that yes, we can create, we can understand identity and authenticity and all those things on a very practical level inside of us. But guess what? We were made, we were designed to be loved. And it's the love from someone else, hopefully our parents, to start, that galvanizes, like literally galvanizes all of that beauty and wonder inside of our soul and psyche, right? We have to
Yeah.
have someone on the outside, saying, "Hey, Nicole, guess what? I see these things in you, and they're beautiful, they're powerful, they're wonderful." We were designed to have that fuel, poured into us. And so it's kind of we live in a dangerous world, right? We live in a world that seems so topsy-turvy and upside down. And we were, made not only in the image of God, but we were made have validation and love. So those things that are most true about us, right? Like I've got my daughter's 18, my son is 20, or no, she's 19 now. And I we really, when the kids were growing up, we tried to ask them a lot of questions about, the things that they value. And of course, we have a family culture and the things that we value. But as they got older and they started to express everything from the things that they care about to their talents, their giftings, that thing that puts a lump in their throat, the things that, that make their heart break and all that kind of stuff. We really tried to notice those things and then call them out, right? Validate those things and to say, "Hey, Parker, you know what? Yesterday when you were doing this or you said this, I could tell like, man, that came from a really deep place in you. And guess what? It's good. And I want you to know that I see that and I see you and I value that and I value you." And it's amazing how that type of external, love and validation just changes everything for us.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and that reinforces what you see, right? Because it's so easy for us to dismiss the things that we do and to not
Yeah.
notice. And so you just pointing that out, I mean, I know that that's going to make a huge difference in the life and in the long run. So I
Mhm.
commend you for that. That is amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
and so that we can get some more of this goodness from you, can you let us know how we can stay in touch with you after this episode?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm launching my book here, hopefully, sometime in the spring. And then I'm also creating a YouTube channel. It's going to be called the Ask Experience. So here, what's funny, right? I'm having a little fun with my last name, but
I
my
see what you did there.
yeah, so we're going to call it the Ask Experience, and really, it's about when the word ask, kind of, begs a question mark, right? And it's so what we're wanting to do is to kind of introduce people to themselves, and so that they can start removing those question marks and operate in a life where you walk into a room and you don't have a question mark because you feel it, and so does everybody else. And but yes, if you want to, right now, the website that I have up is just davidoskmusic.com. And if there's something I can, do for you, just let me know, there, and I'll do my best.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And all his links will be available down in the show notes as usual, you guys know. And okay, so last thing, we like to sign off with a final tip. So what's like that big tip, like the big money tip that you give your clients? Like give it away here to us now.
Yeah. I use this quote almost every time I'm on the stage speaking anywhere. It's by Benjamin Disraeli, and former PM of England. And he says, "The greatest good you can do for another is not to share with him your riches, but to reveal to him his own." And I just absolutely love the idea of seeing richness in someone else. And for heaven's sakes, say something, right? If you see something beautiful and wonderful and powerful and lovely and whatever those words are that would describe someone, for heaven's sakes, say something.
I love that. I love that so much because usually that see something, say something, it's like very negative. It has very negative connotations and we don't gotta go into all that, but just the fact that you twist it, right? And you're just turned it around and you're like, hey, if you see something beautiful, say something about it. I love that. And you know what? That's your own beauty being reflected back on you because you see the world is beautiful. And so that's the reason that you can shout it out like that. So I love that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for being here with us, David. This has been absolutely incredible. And we will catch you guys next time on the next episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. Bye. Thanks again for tuning in to Overcome Yourself, the podcast. Stay bold, stay grateful, and keep becoming your best you. For more information and resources from me, Nicole, head over to nicoletexberry.com/resources. See you next time.